Mobius puts Loki to work, but not everyone at the TVA is thrilled about the God of Mischief's presence. Hello everybody, I'm Steve from VALHARTV, and today I'll be reviewing Loki Episode 2. Episode 2 starts out with TVA agents arriving at a Renaissance fair in Oshwick, Wisconsin in 1985. And they are, obviously looking for the variant Loki, and they walk into a big top 10. And of course, it's obviously a trap. You can see that a mile away once they look at it and start going towards it. And of course, the other Loki deletes them all except for one. That Loki drags that person off. And we'll find out later why. But it's old Loki's turn to kind of shine almost. It's his first field mission. Mobius is like, all right, let's go out. You're going to help us find a lead. And Loki's like, absolutely. But what does he do? He turns around and he uses this time to test his boundaries and see what will happen. And Mobius calls him out on it. He's like, he's lying. Let's all leave. Bye. And Loki's like, well, okay. I was. And it's like, wait, what? I mean, I kind of chuckled, but at the same time, I didn't, because I was like, that's it? Kind of thing. But of course, when they get back to the TVA, Mobius, and I think even like some of the others, tell Loki like the whole time that he is the inferior Loki. And that he needs to really pull his weight. And he needs to read a whole bunch of files, right? So he can try to help figure out where the variant is hiding, because they're not getting any readings off of this variant. And honestly, right at that moment when they started telling Loki he was the inferior Loki, that this was a more dangerous and better Loki, I immediately was like, well, it's gonna be a female then, because they've been using this trope now for a few years in basically every type of show or movie, especially superheroes. So I immediately thought it was going to be a female. And they also gave another clue, even in the episode 1, when we couldn't see the figure's shape. It was under a big hood and cloak, so you couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman. And that was the other, basically, thing that I was gathering this off of. But we do see Loki actually do some work and read through these files, and he keeps reading about apocalypse moments where, like, Ragnarok happened. And he comes up with a theory, and he goes to Mobius and tells Mobius about it. And of course, Mobius is like, oh, you're just saying this so we can get you out and, you can try to escape. And he's like, no. He's like, really? So they test the theory out, and lo and behold, Loki actually found a clue as to where the variant was hiding. So they go back and they do a whole bunch of more talking in this show, in this episode, and they go back and forth. Mobius goes to the head lady, Ravonna, I believe it is, Ravonna, and he does a whole bunch of talking with her. She does a whole bunch of talking with him, and then they go back and forth, and I was kind of like, man, there's a lot of talking in this episode. And there really was. Like, I was kind of hoping for a little more, a little more about the TVA, a little more about what's been going on type stuff. And no, we get taken to Alabama 2050, where there is a huge storm raging, and it's basically the end of the world for this group of people in this store. And Loki goes in and he gets beat up. When they do an actual action sequence, he literally gets beat up the whole time by multiple people that are being controlled by the other Loki. And, of course, the episode ends on the big reveal of who the Loki is, and lo and behold, it's female Loki. And then we see the TVA go crazy because the timeline has been bombed and all these branches are going off of it. And I was like, that's it? That's the big... I was like, that's the big reveal? It wasn't like to me, it wasn't really a huge reveal when even everybody outside of this, even before episode 1, was saying that it was a female Loki, but there were hints throughout episode 1 and 2 that you could tell it was going to be a female. So it wasn't a huge surprise. It really wasn't. And that was kind of disappointing because I thought the first episode was a solid start to the series. But then they just kind of took a step back on episode 2. Even though we did see some action scenes, but it was really just kind of all one-sided. And that's where kind of I was a little disappointed in this episode. But the effects were still good. I actually really liked the apocalypse events. They go to Pompeii in here, and then they go to Alabama, Haven Hill. And I thought that was actually really awesome because you see this storm literally raging, and it's ripping buildings and billboards apart. And I thought that was actually looked pretty good. The acting in this was fine for the most part. I had really no issues with it. I didn't really like how Loki was getting beaten up towards the end, or that fact that he was getting told he was the inferior one, even though he's just a variant. So there really shouldn't be any inferior versions. They should all be completely different because in the first episode, they talk about each of the variants having different powers, different looks, but that this particular Loki that we've dealt with throughout all the movies was inferior somehow. And I was like, yeah, you know what that's leading to, a female Loki. This episode, we got a lot more talking in it and not much action in this. I still think the TVA is an interesting concept. I do like the time travel part of it. But again, that does present, different conundrums for how they can go, you know what I mean? Because with splitting timelines, things like that, you're able to go in so many different directions, and they kind of try out a few in this, but it's with all the talking in it and kind of the walking, it wasn't as good as episode 1, in my opinion. I would give this at least 6.5, maybe 7 out of 10. So this episode, was kind of, okay. It was a decent episode for the most part. Let me just put it that way. I had mixed feelings about this. If you guys like what I do, please hit the like button and subscribe. Take care for now, everybody.